of
you.
you just arriving, welcome to Memoir Church. We're so glad that you're here. We are going to get started. I'm Suze Allen, and this is my featured writer and lovely friend, Peter Welch. Yay, Peter!
Yay! Hey, Peter.
And
Thank
his
you.
supportive twin brother, Paul, in the house. Uh, so, Peter, what you've worn many hats in life, and suddenly you're getting your MFA in writing, and you're writing a memoir for your thesis. How did how did that come to happen?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think when I was approaching 60, I thought, what's next in my life? And I work at UNH, and I had actually taken a memoir class there, which I really enjoyed. And I thought this was a great class, but I will never ever be writing a memoir. That was where I was at and what I was thinking about. And then I found this wonderful program, Bay Path University, and ended up um, taking incredible courses on nature writing, on spiritual writing, on writing about family. And it kind of just it pulled me to writing the memoir. I just thought, okay, this is something that I now kind of have to do because
Hmm.
I'm remembering parts of my life when I was a boy. The memoir takes place from about age 5 until about 15, so I'm pretty young.
Hmm.
And so
The,
yeah,
yeah, the title is Kiss the Ground, Boyhood, Belonging, and the Kinship of Nature, which is such a gorgeous title. I want to talk a little bit about how we get those messages to create things. You were called to the memoir because you were remembering through a class you were taking. But
hmm
then why did you latch onto it? What felt really tangible and palpable for you to want to consider putting it all together in a
sure,
book?
sure. I think my work for 25 years, I worked as a health educator and a counselor at the university. And I spent a lot of time listening to other people's stories. And I thought, I think it's my time to figure out my own story. Even though I was at the time 60, I'm 63 now, and I'm still figuring this story out. It's continuing to evolve as I write, as I work with my very gifted editor and who helps me. Susie's my editor. And so we're working together to refine this story and move toward, something, a publisher, hopefully at some point who will want to publish it.
Nice. And what is it about, what gave you your subtitle? I'd like to know about
Thank you. Well,
the boyhood.
yeah, it is about my boyhood and how I came to understand myself, I think, as a different kind of boy. I think I had a sense of difference from a very early age. I didn't really understand what that was until later when I came out as a gay man in my early 20s. And so, but there is a sense of difference through my boyhood that I think I spent quite a bit of time writing about and exploring and trying to understand what that meant for me, what it meant for me in my relationship to my father, to my mother, to my siblings, to the rest of my family. But yeah, so thinking about boyhood and my sense of belonging and what that means and what that meant. Actually, I'm going to read a piece tonight where I didn't belong, and I knew I didn't belong. And so there was a lot of sort of excavating ideas about belonging, like where do I fit in? How do I fit in? Where do I find my place in the world? And so I spent time writing about those ideas about where do boys who are different find their place in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, and you and I, we grew up in the next town over from each other. Small town, blue collar, working family. And for people that were a little bit different, children that were different, it was kind of tricky. It was a time of, we weren't really seen or heard, many of us, in those situations. So, what did nature provide for you during that that time of not belonging?
Well, I wrote about nature as both a balm and a muse. And so I think for me as a boy, it was everything. We often heard from our family members, okay, you kids, get outside. They were trying to give us some space, but for us, it was being outside was liberation. It was
Mm-hmm.
freedom. It was play. It was creating forts in the backyard. I'm going to read a piece about climbing trees. And so for me, nature was always a place I went to for connection, for being okay with who I am,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then as an adult, I go to nature now all the time because that is my refuge. To be
Mm.
in nature. Yeah.
And I love that in the format of the book, you have those today spaces. It's kind of a hybrid memoir in that, there's poems, there's some of your paintings, and there's the snatches of something that's happening in the now, and many of those are connected. There's little bits of descriptions of critters in nature, and it's a lovely combination of all of the parts of you coming together, not just your boyhood, and an
Thank you so.
amalgam of belonging in there.
Oh,
So,
I love that expression. Thank you. That's all right. So let me pull this up. Okay, so I'm going to be reading, it's 8 short sections. Each section, the title begins the essay. And so it's chronological through the current manuscript. So page 15, it's just after lunch on a warm early summer day in June. Billowy clouds inch across a cerulean sky. School is out, and my brother Paul and I amble through our backyard looking for mischief. We are 8 or 9 and have come to love climbing trees. It's a way to exert ourselves outdoors in the natural world and compete to see who can climb the highest. We are tall and skinny, not unlike these towering wonders of roots and trunks and branches. The adults tell us we grow like weeds. A grove of eastern white pine trees is perched on a small hill behind our house, inviting us over for a closer inspection. At their base, I gaze up through the gnarl of branches where a spattering of sky reaches in along the tree's vertical pole. The wind stirs their reaching upper limbs. The stand of trees stretches 40 to 50 feet into the atmosphere, and their girth resembles a mingling of sturdy adult men. Pines have rugged trunks and capable horizontal branches. We've climbed these wondrous trees before, but never to the top. Hey, Paul, are you ready to climb? I ask. I'm ready, he enthusiastically replies, peering up into the belly of the tree. Today we decide we're going all the way up. Can you give me a hand? Paul provides a hoist to the first branch, and it manages to hold my boy weight. Then I offer him a hand up. With some wrangling, we each make it to the next row of bulky branches. Dark patches of pine pitch already cover our fingers and palms. I've scraped my forearm on the course of tree bark, and my skin there is roughed up, but so far no blood. My brother and I move with steady intention, grunting and breathing heavily with each careful maneuver. We reach and pull to the next level of branches, and soon find ourselves in the protective interior of this massive conifer. We are acrobats maneuvering up and through tangled tree topography. I'm aware of the importance of holding on and what could happen if I suddenly let go or misstep one branch to the next. About midway to the tree's crown, I twist around and peer through the branch arms out across the yard for some perspective. Wow, is all we say to each other as we look up and out. The aerial view feels magnificent. I see the rooftop of our house, the swaying branches of neighboring trees down the yard, and just beyond, the grassy field across the street. I find the stone wall that runs along our house's road frontage, then further out, a scattering of rooftops leading to Route 1, the major roadway through town. The new perspective energizes me, and I turn back around to focus on the task at hand, climbing to the top. As we continue up, the branches become thinner, wiry, like us. We maneuver through scraggly limbs, aware that there's less tree and more air and sky surrounding us. With one hand, I hold tightly to what looks to be a strong branch, and with the other, wrap my arm around the tree's shrinking girth. I scrape my other arm on the rough, knotty bark. No harm done. My feet are firmly planted on two separate limbs, albeit at different heights. My hands are covered in blotches of dark pine pitch. I smell my fingers and breathe in the tree's turpentine scent, pungent, acidic, and sweet. Holding tightly, I turn my upper body to look out into the distance, past a cluster of houses, then a seafoam marsh where water undulates, river-like, then a row of beach cottages, smaller still, along the Atlantic's edge. Then only ocean vastness reaching to the horizon.
Lovely.
Wow.
I could feel that pine pitch on my hands.
Thank you.
Delightful.
And I can remember being very scared at the top because it was
Yeah.
Yeah, that was scary, wasn't it?
That's very high.
the view was magnificent.
Okay, page 37. I spy Mrs. Boston, my first grade teacher, as she tacitly moves around the room, inspecting hands for clipped and clean fingernails. She lands at my desk, and like the other students, I offer her my hands, though my fingers are curled under. She slides her own hand under my two and gently fans out my digits, revealing chipped remnants of shiny pink nail polish at the end of my long fingers.
Oh, dear.
I look down. In the bathroom prior to the surprise inspection, I scratched and scraped as much off as I'm able, but it's still noticeable. In a faint voice, she asks, "What's this?" I don't answer and keep looking down at my fingers, ready for this moment to be over. From the corner of my eye, I watch her body straighten, still holding my hands in her own, considering me. She's tilted her head. Her face has a curious expression. Eventually, I look up, making only brief eye contact before she moves on to the next student. Then, as now, I have no memory of painting my fingernails with pink polish when I am 6. Perhaps I have discovered the glossy nail paint in my sister's or mother's room and experimented with it on my own fingernails. I am a boy and already understand that boys don't wear nail polish. Still, my fingers are painted pink. Am I now marked by the teacher and the other students sitting nearby who have witnessed this exchange? Fortunately, no teasing occurs. Mrs. Boston remains kind to me after this discovery. I imagine it is all right that a boy in her first grade class has painted his fingernails with a bit of shiny pink nail polish. Maybe it will be okay to be a different kind of boy here.
Wow.
Lovely.
Wow.
Sweet.
Thank you. Page 46. While Mom is driving, she peers into the rearview mirror and casually offers, "Don't kiss your grandfather on the lips." My mother and brother and I are traveling to Sanford, Maine, a short ride from where we live in Booty, to visit our grandfather Roberge. We go to see her father every few months, an obligatory visit, an attempt to maintain a relationship with him, and perhaps have him come to know his grandsons. Grandpa Roberge shares an apartment with his father in a rundown tenement building in town. As she makes this remark, I'm sitting on the edge of the back seat, and our eyes briefly meet in the rearview mirror. I can feel my face flush, a mixture of shame and confusion. I only know that what she has said is weird, causing me to sit back next to my brother and ponder my confused thoughts. Paul seems to be in his own world, looking out the window. I imagine he's heard Mom's comment, but keeps to himself. Have I kissed Grandpa on the lips before? Don't family members sometimes kiss each other? Is she saying this to teach me that boys aren't supposed to kiss other boys on the lips? And if we do, will it be terrible for everyone? Page 57. The bed springs grumble and squeak as I thrash about, working to get comfortable in Graham's bouncy twin bed. My brother and I are on an overnight, and he has claimed the bed closest to the windows. The room is cozy and tight, not unlike our bedroom at home, and overlooks Boyd's Corner Road where Graham and Gramp Welch live in Tatnick, a long-established neighborhood in South Warwick, Maine. My bed sits next to an open closet where a neat cluster of slacks and dresses hang. Past the closet is a landing, then a stairway down to the kitchen and living room. Grandpa's bedroom opens next to us, where Graham and Grandpa are sharing his double bed for the night. There are no doors here. A thin wall separates the two small bedrooms. Before bed, Graham reminds us of the chamber pot on the floor in the closet. I have already convinced myself I will not be using it during the night. The distance between here and the outhouse off the kitchen isn't far, I tell myself as I climb into bed. Meanwhile, I listen to the peepers outside. There's no choice, really. Their mating calls fill the space in my head with a multitude of high-pitched shrieks. Despite their lusty cacophony, I try to distract myself, try to relax. It's only 8:30 p.m. and the day's descending light bleeds in through the waxy, paper-thin window shades. Hey, Paul, are you still awake? I whisper into the shadows. Yes, he answers. These beds are squishy, he offers. Yeah, I reply. I'm not using that pot to pee. Me neither. I
Nope.
squeeze my eyes shut and hope for easy sleep. Somehow morning comes. Paul's bed is already empty. I throw the covers off, climb out of bed, and tromp down the narrow stairway, stretching my already long limbs and wiping my face awake. The black marble eyes from a 10-point buck's head hanging on the wall above the divan follows me through the tidy living room as I make my way into the kitchen. There, the eastern morning sun streams through a side window, a trapezoid of apricot light rising up to greet me for breakfast. The formica table is pulled away from the wall where it normally sits and set for a special occasion, a chair on each side for grandparents with their grandsons. Gathered at the table center are assorted miniature cereal boxes, frosted flakes, apple jacks, and Rice Krispies, along with a jug of milk, bread lightly toasted, orange juice, an assortment of teas, honey, and a small pitcher of cream.
Wow.
The smell of the smell of scrambled eggs. It was wow. The smell of scrambled eggs and sizzling bacon waft from the wood-burning cook stove. The morning offerings are ringed by meticulous place settings, neatly arranged cutlery on paper napkins, and pearl-white corningware embossed with a pale green vine meandering the plates' rims. Cereal bowls crown bread and butter plates. Grandpa sits at the head of the table nearest the cook stove, reading the morning paper. Graham bustles about the kitchen as she slathers butter on bread newly popped from the toaster, pours juice, checks the stove, then wipes her hands on her apron as she takes her seat next to her spouse. Paul and I sit, and before we begin eating, Grandpa initiates a grace. This ritual is foreign to us, though we understand with a quick glance at each other that bowing our heads and clasping our hands together comes next and sets their quotidian custom in motion. With this, Grandpa begins, murmuring in a low, gentle voice, speaking with great sincerity, thanking God for the abundance before us, the possibilities of a new day, for the presence of their grandsons. At the end of grace, we collectively vocalize an amen. I feel safe with my grandparents and spoiled.
Lovely.
Mhm.
Trapezoid of apricot light. It's
Thank
beautiful.
you. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, page 76. Today, October 2022. Ancient eastern white pines enshrine the Sawyer Farms Trail entrance in Kittery Point, Maine, where we live. A blanket of pine needles, the color of dark honey, gather along the trail's edge. I experience a soft welcome through a series of switchbacks, creating a moving rhythm that resembles a slow, extended sway of my body as I begin the trail walk. Among the forest detritus are down spindly branches in various states of decay, and thousands of white pine seeds scattered like confetti, each with the hope of taking root and creating new forest life. Gnarled tree roots crisscross the path at odd angles, heaving up through the dense soil, causing me, on days when I run the trail, to focus attention solely on the ground ahead of me. Today, while walking, my gaze reaches up and around me. Still, the roots are speed bumps, reminding me to slow down, take it easy, and stay a while. Rocks of every size and shape rise up through the ground surface along the trail like many icebergs. Into the trail's interior, the timber landscape morphs from pine to harder woods, ash, maple, and oak. Decaying leaves now line the path, along with accidental sprigs of wild grass, leading to broader verdant patches and waist-high bushes just beyond the trail's border. Above me, the tree canopy reaches out, offering flecks of light throughout the trail and along the forest floor. There's a rustling of leaves as a rush of air passes through the tree's bony branches. Scattered among the hardwoods is a white birch, fallen, weakened by New England's harsh and rugged climate. A velvety bark the color of parchment remains as lines, staccato-like, run horizontally across her skin. She is a glowing capsule dispersing herself, remnants of what once was, now in various stages of decay. The cycle of life is ever present here, birth and life and death and birth again, all around me, a synchronous existence. Although Graham has been gone for over a decade, her spirit remains by my side through these woodland walks. I can still hear her voice, curious and knowing of the ways she instinctively understood the natural world around us. Past an outcropping of wild fern, I come across the remnants of a robin's egg. The exterior is turquoise blue and bone white along the inside. I lean back and look up to discover a tall oak tree canopy, maybe 60 feet into the sky. It's a brutal fall for a new hatchling. I send a prayer out into the forest for the life of this tender fledgling, that she is someplace near, safe from harm. A few yards ahead, despite my attention to the jagged path in front of me, I trip on a tree root and in an instant watch the ground race toward me as I fall. Thankfully, I land in a soft spot adjacent to the path. Only my hands and knees are scuffed up, no broken skin. I take a few calming breaths and continue along the trail. With each daily walk, I experience a bodily memory of the trail and surrounding forest. I am enwombed by these woodlands, and with each repetition, feel that I'm becoming the pines, the birches, the falling tree branches, the upcropping of root along the path. I kiss the ground in gratitude, reverence, and respect for the natural world. I belong in who I'm becoming, buoyed and welcomed here, just as I was as a boy.
Beautiful.
Ah, we all were walking with you through that. Gorgeous. Lovely.
Thank you, Susie. Page 81. Perched at the sliding glass door, I peek out from inside the house onto the driveway where my father convenes with other men from the neighborhood, along with their sons. They are eyeballing his new motorcycle. The air is cold and biting. The boys and men hover close together. Plumes of breath rise, a dispersing cloud of vapor mingling among their huddled bodies. Even from the house, I see my dad's swelling chest, his murmuring of CCs, torque, and new skins. He kicks up the kickstand with ease and mounts the cowie, both feet firmly planted on the ground to hold up its mass. His hands travel across the bike, inspecting the hog's instrument panel and fuel tank to make sure there's enough gas for a long, low ride. He talks jovially with his pals as they nudge each other, enamored with their new man toy. I am a boy of 10, and like other boys my age, am wondering where I fit into the life of my father. I'd like to understand how he might love me and I him, though I already know this is not my tribe. Dad rides the kickstart, lifting his entire body and thrust, spurring the engine as it smoothly turns over. He gives the throttle a few deep turns as the mufflers echo through the neighborhood. The bike's exhaust adds foggy plume to the chilly air, mixing with the collective breath of boys and men. Excitement among them is burning over as they circle my dad and tousle each other. Perhaps they are wondering who will get the first ride. Much later, I come to understand that my father is often unsure of himself among his best buddies. The angst he carries of his own identity and place in the world, the sense of genuine belonging, will barely make its way to the surface during his lifetime. I watch from behind the glass as this spirited exchange plays itself out. I briefly consider joining them, then rethink the idea of lingering from a safe distance. I've seen this ritual before, dozens of times really, and understand that it is a requirement of fitting in, one of the many rites of passage for boys and men, not like me. Over time, I watched my dad struggle to navigate the space between me and him and his buddies. Perhaps my softness reminds him of his own tender underbelly. Like the rest of us, he's learned the ugly epithets, fag mostly, and also the ways he's come to speak about and treat women only as sexual objects. The calendar of scantily clothed women in provocative poses hangs in the basement next to his workbench. To his credit, my dad does his best to keep these aspects of himself separate from his boys. He never encouraged us to ogle the women on the calendar, thank goodness. Still, his guise of masculinity creates miles between us, an emotional cavern that interferes with meaningful connection between father and son. I understand this hidden side of him because I too am learning to navigate the stifling culture of manhood with its rigid rules and rituals. I take one last look outside and then turn away. Page 92. Her jeweled eyes are closed, her ceramic chin pulling north. She's idle and waiting to be adored, but only a light touch, please. Otherwise, she will scratch and bite. She is aloof, like many cats. Her long manicured tail wraps tightly around her lithe body. Her narrow crimson form is perpetually erect. She's flanked by a sofa chair and the plate glass window, which commands a lovely view of the shared front lawn. Unfortunately, the olive green shag rug makes for an unsteady existence. Her first defeat is the hardest to bear. I suppose my brother and I are being rambunctious, wrestling in her vicinity, and before we know it, she has crashed and is in pieces. We share a startled look of disbelief, then quickly gather the necessary supplies to repair her before Mom arrives home from work. She is now a feline with fissures, delineations to mark her aging place in the world of our unsteady family life. These are her wrinkles, I suppose. Despite the thin, cragged lines that now mark her previously perfect form, she's still beautiful. In fact, she holds my rapt attention, her place now elevated among us. Cracks have invited in the light. Look at me. I've endured you, she is saying, indignant and never ever becoming a victim. A few months later, she topples again. The circumstances of this next stumble are similar to the original, and my brother and I are roughhousing. Look what you did, I say to my brother, the both of us wide-eyed as we stare at what's scattered in front of us, a million pieces of red porcelain cat. Push me into her, he quickly replies. No matter, we'll settle this score later. For now, we gather newspaper glue and chunks of resolve, piece her back together as best we are able. Some of the ruptures follow her original defeat, others are new, creating additional fault lines in her sculpted existence. This time, she has also been decapitated, so we take extra care in binding her head and torso together as the glue dries, bringing her back to some semblance of a life. She is not happy. When Mom arrives home, she offers only a heavy sigh when she learns of what has occurred with her beloved porcelain feline. My brother and I understand the value of this ceramic creature in our mother's eyes. She is a unique artifact, something resembling art beyond our common life in a working class family. I feel guilty for breaking our mother's prized porcelain cat, a vestige of something own that is special and unique. Despite her defeats, she survives us. Okay, page 145. Today, January 2024. This is the last piece. I encounter an hour of bone-chilling bliss as I walk the Sawyer Farm Trail. I interact with no other human. My shadow, the shadows of the white pines and red oaks, the crunch of the dry, tawny leaves under my feet, the wind as it surrenders to the bare, stark branches. These are my only companions. Before I leave for my morning walk, I check the temperature outside, which reads 18 degrees. Out the kitchen window, gusts of wind startle the treetops, and later into the woods, the icy air encourages a crackling of limbs, telling aches from these sturdy souls in winter. A silver sheet of frost blankets the forest floor. Walking along the trail, I begin spontaneously hugging different trees. I choose woods of substantial girth, at least 18 inches across. These towering timbers, by any measure, surpass 100 years in age. They are ancient, old souls. A tree this size allows me to wrap my long arms around it, clasping my hands together, their bark close against my face and body as I hold tight. The embrace between us leaves a unique imprint on my being. I've been a tree hugger throughout my life, and as a boy, I communed with these tall wonders in quiet ways, my brother and I climbing their trusted and welcoming limbs. Each tree feels unique as I hug them. With some, I sense an instant welcome which encourages me to stay a while. With others, my visit is enjoyable but brief. These evergreen and deciduous wonders which hover high into the blue air ground my soul. And something else, when I allow myself to linger, to surrender, I begin to weep. I can't say why I have this reaction other than to share that I experience a deep, abiding peace with my body wrapped around these giant sentient beings. Perhaps their stillness reminds me of why I am here.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, that was
Yes,
beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.